and Beeville's got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
It's an interesting between, Mohegan Manor, Angry Garlic. What they're doing at Angry Garlic is great. I mean, I think that's probably the best restaurant in Baldwinsville right now. And I like what they do there. Man, it ended up not affecting them, but they really did get the short end of the stick on the COVID thing because they were like one of the first restaurants that had a restaurant person test positive for COVID.
Really?
Right when things could reopen, and they did well with it. They closed down, they cleaned, they did everything that they were supposed to do.
I remember that.
And it's kind of funny because that's become like it's not even newsworthy now.
Yeah.
At the time, it was just this
stop the presses.
This holy crap, like somebody has COVID, and it's now. I mean, I bet there's a restaurant every single day that has a positive person or contact or whatever, and just nobody cares.
I was telling Kyle from Kasai was down last night, and we did an episode, and I was telling him, we were talking a lot about, because he's very much against the shutdown, like the orange zone restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, everybody downtown's really getting a raw deal on that because you can drive 10 minutes and sit down and eat, but you can't, the Marriott, I mean, same thing. It just, it ruined what we had that was starting to be a good thing. And I'm not opposed to shutdowns. I'm not opposed to keeping people safe and all that kind of stuff. But when you really look at what's happening, it's not helping anything. Yeah. And it's super unfair to the businesses that happen to fall into that.
Right.
And then you go to the mall, and the restaurants in the mall can't be open, but the food court can be. Right. And like, how is that not dining indoors?
Yeah. Right.
It's ridiculous.
The reasons for it too. I mean, for why, like the urban areas, Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, I believe Albany is, but I don't know for sure. Obviously New York City is, but why we'll take New York City out of the equation. Why Syracuse is shut down, and downtown Syracuse, when it has, 5,000, like less than 5,000 residents that live down there. I'd imagine those aren't the ones. The downtown residents aren't like the strong majority of the people that are in the hospital that are located in downtown Syracuse.
Exactly.
I mean, if those the reason they're orange is because the hospitals are right in downtown Syracuse. Upstate, St. Joe's, Krause, all of them are right there.
Right.
And Kyle made a, classic Facebook post on his personal page the day he found out he was orange zone, and he got a call while he's in Target, standing in line with 15 people in every line in Target. Carts aren't sanitized. People aren't maintaining 6 feet distance, and why that's allowed to still stay open and exist when restaurants have to shut down, when there's less of an exposure rate, right. Yeah. In these restaurants. I was telling him the story. I can't say their names, but person A and person B are good friends. Haven't seen each other in like a month. They decide to go out to dinner one night. So person B drives to person A's house. They hang out for a little bit. They both get in person A's car, drive to the restaurant in North Syracuse that's having a half-off sale on Wednesday night that's slammed with business. There's a 45-minute wait that's so busy. So they have to sit in person A's car together for 45 minutes while they wait for the table. They go in, they sit down across from each other, eat, masks off, right? Because they're sitting down and eating, have dinner, drive back to person A's house, hang out for a little bit. Person B goes home. 2 days later, person A gets a test for COVID for their job and test positive. And then all of a sudden start showing signs.
Is that the restaurant's fault? Is
right.
That, that's no,
exactly. But the kicker is person B tested positive, person B is tested for COVID twice now since then over the course of 5 days, and has tested negative both times.
Right.
So, like, they were in a car, hanging out together, sitting across from each other, masks off, and person B still didn't get it. And yet restaurants have to shut down because of the infection rate.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've spent a lot of time in tattoo parlors and piercing shops and places like that. And there's they fall into the personal care. And the state went back on that and said, because enough, it's hairdressers, it's massage therapists, it's, tattoo parlors. There's a lot of personal care services.
Yeah.
And they went back and said, listen, we're shut down for no reason. There's been zero in the state that, have been contact traced to our services. And so they got to reopen even though they're in the orange zone, which I'm hoping that they can do something like that with restaurants where they can say, hey, if you're taking the right precautions or whatever, you can continue to run your business, because it's difficult. The problem with the orange zone and the problem with the city of Syracuse is the perception. Number one, the perception of, we're in the city. There's these hospitals with people that are positive. There's high positivity rate, which really just means that, like you said, there's only 5,000 people living in the city of Syracuse in that area. The positivity rate it really reflects, in my opinion, that those people really only have access to getting tested if they're symptomatic.
Right.
Where if you're somewhere where your job requires it, or if you're in the hospitality industry and you can get tested, but you don't know, not 100% of the people that live in Syracuse work in Syracuse, and a lot of people come from out. Myself, up until recently at the hotel,
right?
Half the people that I work with didn't live in the city.
Yeah.
So even if I had, which I haven't tested positive, been tested a few times, but if I had and I was downtown, it's not a real reflection of what's going on downtown. The bigger problem, in my opinion, with downtown Syracuse is, at least for the Marriott, a lot of our business was generated through the things that happen in the city. Sporting events, crunch games, football games, basketball games, theater, the city of Syracuse events themselves.
Yeah.
And without those things going on, you're not driving people downtown.
Right.
People aren't coming downtown. And then, also with a lot of the places, the Equitable Building, formerly the AXA Building, they're 20% occupancy right now. There's not a lot of people that are actually working. A lot of those people work from home.
Wow. Holy cow. That's a lot of people in that building.
Right. And there's not a lot of people in that building.
Wow.
It's really, right across the street from the hotel is the Tech Garden. They're 90% from home. And so there goes your lunch business, right?
Yeah.
So now you're relying on what people traveling to and from the area, where the Marriott's been pretty lucky because they've been able to, retain a lot of that traveling business, but they're people that are either they're in and out, they're there for a day and then they're leaving, or they don't. It's not enough to sustain everyone.
Yeah.
We have guest rooms, great, or
right.
But is somebody going to stay there for 4 days? They're going to eat 8 meals at your restaurant?
Right.
And what does that do for everybody else?
Especially because 11 Waters hasn't opened up since quarantine, right?
No, so 11 Waters has been closed since March 14th. Parade Day.
Wow.
I think Parade Day was the last day that it was open.
That's nuts.
And, it's for a hotel like that, it's not justifiable to open a second place.
Yeah.
And it's because they're in the orange zone as well. It's to-go food only.
Yeah.
Which means it's room service pretty much only, because who's going to call the hotel and say, hey, I want to get this to go, and it's a big scary building, and there's not a lot of great parking around, so it's not conducive to getting that to-go business going, where a lot of places, that's kind of the paradigm right now is, there's some places that are doing really, really bad, and then there's other places that are just doing really bad.
Yeah.
And it's all about, can you do to-go business? Can you, do you have a unique product, or are you in a neighborhood?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of neighborhood places are what's doing really well right now.
Yeah, I mean, the restaurant that we've probably eaten at the most, maybe my wife, who's going to listen to this eventually, would argue with me, but maybe the most is Change of Pace, because they're like around the corner from us.
Right.
Before all of this started, we would, that started to be, we've never been like go to the same bar every Friday night, but we were starting to get into like the habit of like going to Change of Pace and getting a bucket of beers and some wings, and it was great,
Right.
But yeah, there's a very few that I hear of that are doing well during this. And some of them, aren't, well, I guess it depends on their business, but very few that I hear that are doing well during all of COVID, from quarantine to today. I feel like restaurants, well, I know restaurants, I mean, I have clients that, for the marketing side, that were doing amazingly well during quarantine. They were down staff. It was just like themselves, and maybe there's one restaurant. It was like the brother and sister were running it,
right?
And there was one, maybe two cooks. It was all takeout. People had more money because if they were on unemployment, they were getting the extra $600.
Nobody has anything to do,
right? So much was shut down back then. Now more stuff is open, so they have more stuff to go do, spend their money on. So in the early days of quarantine, a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but restaurants were still making good money. This restaurant in particular was profiting more than they ever had in their 35 years of being open.
Right.
Today, not the case. They're not even in a zone right now, and they're still making less than they were during quarantine.
Right. And again, it's how many places tried to reopen or are open now, where in the beginning a lot of places didn't jump right back on, which, leads me to say, what's the better decision? Is it better to hunker down, close your restaurant, wait for this to pan out? I mean, now that you can't do that for a year.
Right.
In the beginning, though, it was definitely an option for a lot of people. I mean, who thought we'd be here on January 1st talking about, the same stuff? It's I know. I thought it'd be long gone, and it's scary. It's scary for the industry for a lot of reasons. I mean, there's, I think a lot of places where it's already such a hard business to be in. Why would you continue to do it? You might love it, but if it doesn't make sense for, your mental health or your financial well-being, why keep doing something if it's killing you?
Yeah.
And then, the other side of it is, how many good industry people are we going to lose, because of this? Am I going to be one of those people?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to think of doing something different, but at this point, does it make sense to continue with this? I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm a hardworking guy. I've got a degree from SU. Anybody want to hire me? But to what end? I can cook at home.
Yeah. Right.
Plus, for chefs, I was fortunate enough to work until the beginning of December, which, for everything that happened with everybody in the world, like the fact that I was able to stay employed that whole time is great. And I'll appreciate, the Marriott downtown Syracuse forever for that, because, they didn't have to. And my employment there was kept out of, the desire to retain me, so that when things opened back up, things would go well. But it got to a point where, you have to start making even harder decisions. You've already made, the vast majority of the hard decisions that you're going to make. But then it comes down to, all right, there's two of you, but there can only be one of you. And, unfortunately for me, my counterpart is a chef that's worked there since the open. And who would I be to say, right, I worked there for a year and 2 months, and 7 months of it was during the pandemic, during COVID. Who would I be to say, no, you should keep me?
Right.
This guy's worked there for 4.5, 5 years. You got to keep him.
Yeah.
You have to, and it's the only fair way to do it. So, unfortunately, I'm not there, but I hope that there's a light on the other end of the tunnel. We're getting closer to it. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Do you think? I I mean, you've obviously thought about it. Do you think you would, getting out of the kitchen, out of the restaurant industry is something that would be like, I mean, well, for those listening who don't know, and I don't really know much of your history except for the fact that you were at the Sherwood Inn for a decade, correct?
Right. So I started working in restaurants when I was a kid, washing dishes, that kind of jazz. Worked at Phoebe's as a dishwasher my junior, senior year of high school. Phoebe's is owned by the people that own the Sherwood Inn.
Yeah.
Dining Associates is the name of the company. And I went to SU for hospitality management, did that whole thing. Thanks, Mom, for working there. And, you know, worked around the area at a lot of different places, but the majority of my career was working for Bill Eberhardt and Dining Associates, Phoebe's, and then later on, you know, I left for a few years and I came back to the Sherwood as a sous chef, and became the executive chef there within like a year and a couple months.
Okay.
And then I was the executive chef amongst a million other titles that I held within that company. I was a food and beverage director for the company for a while. I left the Sherwood and went back to Phoebe's and was the executive chef at Phoebe's for a while.
Oh, okay.
And I had a great relationship with them, and I left on great terms with them. It was just time for me to, you know, to move on, do something else, get some other experience.
Were you in Phoebe's right before you went to the hotel?
I was at the Sherwood right before I went to the hotel. Yeah. So Phoebe's was like the middle of my career at the Sherwood. Like I was the executive chef there. I left to go run Phoebe's for about a year, and then I ended up coming back to the Sherwood. It's a bigger place. There's more growth potential, more exposure. It's kind of the flagship of that group.
And they own a lot. I mean, I never knew that they had as much, but they have Phoebe, Sherwood, Blue Water, Gilda's.
Yep.
Is there anything else?
Last year they acquired Mid Lakes Navigation as well.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So and we had been doing the food for Mid Lakes Navigation for like 3 or 4 years. I put that whole program together there.
Wow.
The Wiles family are great people, but they're ready to retire from it. And it sucks. For Mr. Eberhardt, it's really hard because, you know, he was a partner in a lot of these things. And last year he kind of acquired all of them. And then, you know, all this stuff happens and he's got it all on his plate, which, you know, might be good, might be bad, depending on, you know, how you look at it. At least there's one guy making choices and decisions on what you're going to do and not having to consult with every other partner you have.
Yeah.
But as far as me leaving the industry, I mean, right now I'm up for anything. I don't want to leave.
But the industry sucks.
But the industry sucks right now. So it's like, you know, if I got an offer doing something else, but, you know, there's another part of me that I spent my whole life working every holiday, every weekend, every night, 50 to 70 hours a week. And then you come to this and all of a sudden you're working a pretty set schedule, 40 hours a week. Holidays kind of become irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, really quickly. Like nobody, you know, it doesn't matter if you're working on Thanksgiving, because what are you going to do on Thanksgiving anyways? You know, so it's strange because I got shown kind of a what the rest of the world does, works 40 hours a week, and I like it. You know, like I like having some time to myself. I like being able to do things that I want to do, finding new hobbies. You know, chefs really define, a lot of chefs, myself, and maybe I'm wrong in this or crazy to think, but, you know, what do you think of when you think of me? Well, how do I describe myself to people? Well, I'm a chef. That's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. A lot of industries aren't like that. You know, guys, accountant somewhere, like, describe yourself. The first thing isn't, I'm an accountant at X location, but for me, it's like, I'm the executive chef of, you know, wherever I'm at. So I think stepping away from cooking might be in my future, and maybe away from, you know, the operations of restaurants, but I'll always be connected to food service and restaurants in some way. I don't see myself, you know, swinging a hammer on a construction site or you know, managing a apartment complex or something like that. But again, if it's available now, hey, I'm game that this year was all about change. So
Yeah,
it's might as well keep it rolling. Kind of depends on what happens.
Yeah, listen. I mean, you know this better than anybody else. It's beyond tough to say that the food service industry, especially inside of a restaurant, to say that it's a tough industry is like just a little dumb, because it really is everything. I mean, it's not just a job. It's not something you can really clock in and clock out of, but it takes up your entire life. I mean, I've said this story a couple times, but during quarantine, we were like at home I was trying to make really great pizza at the house. And I would post pictures on my Instagram and Facebook all the time. And we had this family friend who would always say, "This looks amazing. You've got to open a restaurant. You've got to open," like every time I would post, she would say, "You've got to open a restaurant." And a lot of times I would delete the comments because I found them to be like kind of a borderline offensive and stupid. Stupid because people don't really understand what it takes to make great food. But I also, I was thinking about it one day as I was driving around, and I wanted to comment back and say, that is the worst thing that you could wish someone to do. Like, I wouldn't wish my worst enemy to own a restaurant one day.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's, it's funny because you got to love it, and you got to be a little bit crazy. But there's also, like I said, there's this identity crisis with people. It's like, I don't know what else I would do, even though and then, you get to an age and you've done this for such a long time. I've never not worked in a kitchen.
Yeah.
My whole life. I've never had a job outside of a restaurant, which is not as rare as you would think for high-end executive chefs and, people in management positions in restaurants, especially people that have done fine dining. That's all they've ever done. So when you say, "Oh, it's really hard," like I don't even know how other people make money.
Yeah.
Like, I can't fathom going to an office and like, somebody pays you for this? Really? Why? What are you doing? It doesn't seem like you're doing anything, you know? So it's hard, but when it's all it's hard to imagine kind of the other side. It's funny, yesterday, being New Year's Eve, I went to a grocery store yesterday. I shop at midnight, generally. Like, I don't go, and I'm never going to go into a grocery store on a holiday. I didn't even think about it. And like you said, Wegmans. I mean, there must have been 1,000 people in Wegmans. Yeah. And that's disheartening because of what's going on in the restaurant industry, but also a little scary because I don't want to be around people like that.
Yeah.
Although, you're masked up and you're ramming people with your cart to keep them away from you.
Yeah, it's definitely I used to work at Metro Mattress. I worked for them twice, 2 different times for like a total of 10 years. And it's retail hours, so it's like you're working. There's more than a few days. It was like, of the week, it was like 12-hour days, but you were working weekends. You had like Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter off, and that was it. Any like 4th of July, all that kind of stuff. It was like
big sales.
Yeah, exactly. All that kind of shit. And so my weekends were like a Wednesday and Thursday, let's say. And a lot of my friends who that I worked with there that then left and went on to different careers, they would say one of the things that they missed the most was having their weekend be during the week. Because when you're off on like a Saturday, Sunday, and you're going to the grocery store,
well, you're fighting with everyone.
Right, exactly. But when you're there at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, there's nobody there.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely a different lifestyle for sure. Yeah, it's just not an easy industry. I worked. I don't really. U.S. passes what? 20 million. No, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, something no one listening to this is going to benefit from is what the U.S. just passed. Don't worry about it, folks.
Well, there's that, but the stimulus money is. My wife and I were talking about this last night, in one way, there's going to be another payroll protection program that's released. Stimulus checks have gone out for $600, right, to a lot of people. In a way, it's good, I guess, but overall, I think it's like terrible for America, especially long term.
Yeah,
and
not for nothing, but and maybe this is from a point of privilege, I don't know, but what's $600 going to do for anybody?
Yeah.
And I think like that's pretty on par with the reality. I mean, I don't think there's too many people that, hey, listen, I'll take it just as much as the next guy. If you're handing it out, I'm going to take it. But it prolongs the inevitable by a week.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kyle and I were talking about this last night on the podcast, and I have a tendency to talk about the same thing for about 6 or 7 episodes in a row. So here we go. But, I was asking people, and I have to always preface this by saying, I know dick about dick. Like, I don't know anything about anything. I am a moron.
Right.
I know a few things about my little circle, and that's it.
Right.
So having said that, I remember asking restaurant people, 2 years ago on the podcast when I would interview them. One of my last questions I would ask them is, are you guys getting ready? Like, are you guys planning at all financially for a recession? And,
how?
Yeah.
Well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, by, like saving money or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of laughable in the industry, but, as a restaurant owner. But the economy has to go through recessions. Since the Great Depression, historically, it's been every 8 years. There's been some sort of a big downturn.
2008. Yeah. Was the most recent,
right?
Whatever.
And in 2008, that was a 12-year mark. So the housing market crisis had pushed past by 4 years.
It had to happen.
Right. Now, today, we're sitting in year 13 since the last one, right? So,
and the longer you wait, probably the worse it's going to be, right? You're just compounding it.
I had been waiting. I'm like, last year, I'm like, the past 2 years, I'm like, all right, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Not knowing what to look for, just knowing that someday we're going to wake up to some bad news about the economy, and that's going to affect things, and how are people going to get ready for it? And as much as I hate to, I can't imagine putting myself in the shoes of a restaurant owner right now and dealing with that sort of stress and anxiety. And I would love nothing more than for every single one of them to do well and succeed and make it through this. But a certain number of them have to shut down through this. I mean, if we're going to get new ideas, new concepts, new creativity, if Dan Hudson one day is going to open up a fucking restaurant, somebody's got to go out, right?
There's got to, it has to happen. I mean, there's too many seats, right? And there's too, like, so this is a conversation I've had several times with people, and I think that there's a couple, good things that will come of this, and there's a lot of bad things, right? I think that the worst thing that's going to happen is that, you're going to see a lot of restaurants shut down, which everybody knows, and I'm not telling anybody any new surprise. The thing that is bad about that is for the workers. Anybody that's spent a significant amount of time working in a restaurant, or any time working in a restaurant in the last 5 years, knows that there just isn't enough cooks. There's not enough cooks. There's not enough dishwashers. There's not enough wait staff, bartenders, people that are willing to do the hard work and care about it enough to do it well. Mm-hmm. This isn't rocket science. Anybody can do this work. It's just, are you willing to put the time and energy into something like this?
Yeah.
And where the workers are going to suffer is, you close 30% of the restaurants down, you still have the same number of people looking for jobs. And so it's going to become a more competitive market, which is great for employers, but what they're going to be able to do is lower pay rates and get better staff. So, in the last few years, it's been very competitive to hire just line cooks. I mean, you're talking $18, $20 an hour, or better.
Yeah.
And I think, but you'd put an ad out, or you'd start looking for people. And somebody like me, I was pretty fortunate, in the places that I've worked, to have a big network of people that I could draw from and say, come work for me. And so a lot of because there wasn't enough staff, the business model, that was adopted at the Sherwood for sure was, let's hire the best people we can, pay them as much as we can pay them, you know, as well as we can pay them, and have less staff. So instead of having 20 guys on your schedule, you have 15. Everybody makes $3 an hour more than they would if you had 20, and they get a little bit of overtime. Everybody wins, right? Yeah. The restaurant has a good product and quality people, but now you're going to see, you know, an ad goes out and 100 qualified people apply for it. Well, yeah, you get to start at the top of that list. If you're an employer, pick who you want, and then tell them what you're going to pay them.
Right.
There is no negotiation. There is no, well, I'm really worth this.
Yeah.
Well, that's a year ago you were worth that. Today, the market's different. I've got a stack of 100 applications, and the first 5 guys are, you know, executive chef level guys applying for a sous chef position. I'm going to pick how much I pay. I think the positive thing that will come out of that scenario is you're going to have some places that hold out decide to pay well, and you're going to have some really awesome restaurants that either are opening that can afford to spend that payroll because it's part of their budget. They know what they're doing, and they're going to have concentrated talent. Or places that have existed for a long time under that same business model, they're going to have concentrated talent, and their quality is going to go up.
Yeah, I mean, that happened. I mean, in the Finger Lakes region, there was a few restaurants from New York City who had, you know, they were shut down. So they came up and did pop-ups at different spots, you know, along the Finger Lakes. And, you know, I work with Eamon Lee now at Gerhar's. He's over there. And
I saw him a week ago or so.
Cool.
I was down there. I finally checked it out. I hadn't been there. It's really cool.
Oh, really?
Really, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a great spot. It really is. It's amazing what they've kind of invested in it, in that building specifically.
And so much different than what was, but previous to them moving to that location, so much different than what was available for for restaurant, you know, supplies and design and that, than what was available. I mean, it's 180 degrees different than 3 years ago, what was available.
It's understandable for this industry, knowing how expensive it is to operate a restaurant. I mean, knowing how food costs, your cost of labor, especially now, it's going up again in New York State. And granted, a lot of these people will hopefully have been paying more than just minimum wage, but it's still increasing. Credit card, I mean, the cost of owning and operating a restaurant is so extreme that I do understand people, you know, trying to pinch every penny that you possibly can. Right.
Yeah.
But having said that, it's amazing to me with having Eat Local New York and knowing the amount of people that are like constantly talking about in our industry, support local, support local, support local, don't support the big chain. It's amazing to see how many of them support the big chain and don't buy from Gerhar's.
Right, yeah. Well, it's
understandable to a degree, but it's still just surprising, especially to have a company that like has invested so much in like Syracuse and trying to build this. Because, now, you know, now having said that, I've just been at Gerhar's for under a year. I just came on in February, like right before all of this, as the marketing manager, and before that, they didn't do anything. They did like one or two. They did like the buy local bash every year,
right?
You know, and they didn't really do much of anything in terms of their marketing, and so it hasn't really like it's not like they have like a really true local identity.
For sure,
you know, in the food service world.
But I think Syracuse, it's getting there. I mean, they've got the right people on the payroll now to put it in that direction. Right. I would say. I mean, you've got
Greg Rode,
Anthony D'Onofrio, Eamon Lee. You know,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's cool to see. It's also nice to see chefs. You know, that's like a beacon of hope for me. Like, hey, these guys found an avenue to get off the front lines but stay in the industry, and they're actually. You know, those are all guys that were making an impact when they were cooking, and some of them haven't cooked in restaurants in years.
Yeah.
But when they were hugely impactful, and this is a way for them to be kind of spread that wealth a little bit and be impactful in a different way. I mean, Greg Rode is, you know, probably not a household name unless you're a chef, right? You know, I mean, that guy is Aurora Inn. He was the original chef at Rosalie's, I believe. The Aurora Inn at the time that he was there was,
Yeah.
you know, insane. And then Side Hill Farms is,
Yeah.
I mean, Side Hill Farms alone makes me want to live in Manlius. You know,
They're closed now, though, right?
Are they?
I think so.
Like permanently
I believe
closed?
so, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's unfortunate. That's another effect of this because, again, when you say all these people talk about buy local, this, that, and the other, I mean, that's a perfect kind of place to make things work. But again, you want to talk about a harder industry and farming.
I know.
You know, it's just crazy. And, you know, having those relationships with farmers and stuff, I can only imagine, you know, it is more expensive for restaurants to buy those things. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it's financially beneficial to buy local products, but it's in season. You know what I mean? If you got a farmer that's got 500 pounds of beets that they need to get rid of, you get them cheap. But, you know, chefs have been forced by ownership and management and stuff to really consolidate their purchasing. So a lot of those farmers have struggled. And I bet Side Hill Farms is the kind of place that, you know, struggled because it's a tight place. People didn't want to go in there. I don't know. I mean, you know,
I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I think those struggles for businesses, for local businesses, I think, and restaurants even, let's say specifically, it's hard to find, well, you know, we started the story, I think we'll kind of touch on it. We started Eat Local. One of the reasons, like right when we had first started, was to help local restaurants, right? Like, you know, I mean, my restaurant experience is like my parents owned a 50s style diner in Kentucky when I was like 12, 11 maybe. And they had it for a year and a half and then shut it down. And it just, you know, a lot of different reasons. So, but I was homeschooled at the time, which meant I was in the restaurant all day long.
Right.
And then I worked third shift at the Denny's on West Genesee Street. Like
Whoa.
The summer I graduated high school, I did that to save up money.
You'll never forget that.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And first time I heard a Neil Young song, first time I learned what the term toss your salad meant, and first time I smoked a USA Gold. Was Denny's on West Genesee Street at 3 a.m. So, you know, so we started, I knew it, you know, it sucked. And so we had a social media marketing business I just started, and a friend of a friend reached out to me and said, there's this restaurant owner in Syracuse. You need to go talk to her. She's struggling. She's about to close. So I went and met with her, and she had the same story that a lot of people that start small restaurants around here do, and I'm sure all over the country. And that was, she had a great job, worked at a bank, you know, house, kids, health insurance.
Thought it was the dream.
Her friend, she made, you know, she cooked, she liked to cook at home. Her friend said, you make the best X, you know, insert whatever the hell it is. It's so delicious. You should start a restaurant. You would crush it, you know. She hears it enough times that she decides one day to quit her job, mortgage the house, get a loan, and open up a restaurant, finally making X. And while maybe she does make the best X around, she has no idea how to pick a good location, how to get a good logo, how to choose the right name, how to market the business, how to manage your food costs.
Who to buy from, how to hire people. Because, I mean, there's a lot of hairy, sketchy, you know, whatever you want to call them, individuals working on every level of this industry. I mean, we're not talking about hiring a sketchy dishwasher. You can hire a sketchy GM.
Right.
If you don't know and you don't know who to ask, you might get stuck with one of those. But you probably will get stuck with one of those people.
Not to mention all the sketchy people that are popping in every day trying to sell you something.
Well, that's a whole nother.
And so she, you know, I won't call like the table or that was a Freudian slip. I won't call table hopping a sketchy individual, but they are. But the Clipper magazine, and you know, they charge her like $3,000 for a month's worth of, you know, coupons in their magazine, and she, you know, like I think a lot of people, they don't know anything about marketing when they open a restaurant. They shouldn't. Well, they should, but they don't. And so she spent the money on it, and it was like the last bit of money she had. And granted, she was in like a terrible location, like a terrible location. no foot traffic, no drive-by, like just awful. So many other decisions that were bad, but that was one of the last bad ones. And she spent it and didn't get one redemption from it. No customers came in from it. By the time I got to her, even to just give her free advice and say you should run a $50 Facebook ad, it was like, I don't have $50. And so she wound up closing. And I forget my point of telling you the story. The point was that stuff still happens today. Like, even especially during all of COVID and quarantine, in the early days of quarantine, restaurant owners that I had pitched to do their marketing for them, or pitched to join the Eat Local card, which that's free for them, but ones that would be like, oh, we don't need it. All of a sudden, they were hiring companies and overpaying for marketing and advertising, even from other sources, just spending money like crazy, just trying to get something.
Right.
But it was bad money. Now, like I told you before we started, we might get interrupted because I have a delivery coming, because I went on the Target app earlier and bought protein powder and oats and peanut butter and 2 throw pillows for the couch, and I'm having it delivered here in a couple hours for free. Now, granted, a local restaurant, right, like Shaughnessy's or whatever, the Sherwood, isn't going to probably have the money to develop that sort of a app, because that's going to be tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Or then have the staffing to go out and make the whatever. But they still don't have the money to even innovate in like small ways. And if they do, they kind of overspend. They don't know what to actually do to innovate in small ways.
Well, yeah. So it's this this again, like, I guess going back to being a chef for my whole life is, say next week I open a restaurant. I know what I know, and I also know what I don't know. The problem is that there's a lot of people that don't know what they don't, or they're not willing to admit what they don't know.
Sure.
And, I know who I would call for different things, that I don't really understand. Can I read a P&L? Sure. Do I understand tax law? No, I would hire an accountant, you know. Do I know how Facebook works? I know how to use it. Do I know how to use it to my benefit from a business standpoint? Well, I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done poorly, but do I really know how to get from point A to point B, or do I need to hire somebody to do that? And it's hard when margins are so close.
Yeah.
Either people do it on their own, and I wouldn't even say necessarily always overspend, but they spend in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Or it's misguided, fruitless marketing. Or they, like you said, or they overspend.
Yeah.
The best way to not have to worry about marketing is being the best at something, and then it's word of mouth and things get out there. But that's also extremely difficult to execute. It's funny because, I've been cooking at home a lot, and I have a really hard time going that direction. Like, the food that I cook at home is so bad compared to what I can cook in a restaurant. It's different. It's different. It's a different kind of stove. You're in your house. You can't make a mess.
Yeah.
You can't clean the same way. You don't have, if you're in a restaurant, I've got 36 pounds of butter or more. I've got 12 quarts of heavy cream. I've got 100 pounds of salt. Let alone every other ingredient that you need. If you need something, you make a phone call. It's just delivered to you the next day.
Yeah.
When I'm cooking at home, I mean, it's you have one oven, not 10. You have 4 burners, not 16. There's just a different, kind of touches to it that it for me it's hard, but I still know how to cook, right? So I've cooked in a house before because I've lived in a house my whole life, so I can get it. It's not that difficult for me to make good food in my house.
Right.
But if you're a home cook, trying to figure out how to work in a commercial kitchen is doesn't matter how good you are. And also, if you're cooking, people think, oh, you just times out the recipe and whatever. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. So, if you could make the best, enchiladas you've ever had, anybody's ever had, or lasagna or chicken pot pie, whatever it is. But now make 1,000 of them.
Right.
And right now, and this guy doesn't want this, and this person does want this, and this guy called in, and, your cooler went down, and, whatever. And, and by the way, you have to do some marketing too. Like what?
Yeah. Right.
It's definitely not necessarily a transferable thing, although people do it, and they do it successfully. It's just a matter of, again, the work and a lot of it's getting lucky.
Yeah.
With a lot of these restaurants, it's, did you get into the right neighborhood before it was the right neighborhood?
Yeah.
Because then your rent's half of what everybody else's is. Did you get into the right, a great example of a restaurant that went out of business, and it didn't go out of business because it couldn't have sustained, but it was just closes. Where Gilda's is now was Kabuki. It was a sushi restaurant in Skinny Atlas.
Oh, wow.
And they did great. But they were also open at a time where the closest place to them to get sushi was in downtown Syracuse. So anybody living in Auburn or Marcellus or any of those places, there wasn't anything else available. And there's a small space. If you wanted sushi, that's where you're going to go,
Yeah.
But then once, Wegmans became a thing, like a legit sushi option. It's not great, but I'll eat it.
Right.
It's if I'm hankering for it and I don't want to spend an arm and a leg, I'll get some sushi from them. But then Ichiban opened in Auburn, another sushi place opened, and whatever happened, and it's like, you were in the right place at the right time, but then when you can see your numbers going like this, and you want to, and that your product hasn't changed, the market's changed.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? And then they opened Gilda's, which is a great little place. I like it. Conversations with a lot of people, spending as much time as I spent in Skinny Atlas, I built relationships with a lot of wealthy people over the years, and it's really what they talk about is, how are you going to spend your money? Because really what's valuable is time, right? Everybody has the same amount of time, but if you can afford to pay somebody else to clean your house for you, you don't have to spend 3 hours a week cleaning your house.
Right.
Then how are you going to use those 3 hours?
Yeah, exactly.
What's it worth to you to not have to mow your lawn, to not have to shovel your driveway or do your laundry or go shopping? And now, and that's why these apps and this delivery service thing is killing it.
Right.
It is because people, the pandemic, people don't want to go out in public. But it's also a time saver, if you're a busy person, which we all are busy people. Do you want to go to Target and grab the stuff that you need to grab, or do you want to stop at the front door and have it brought to your car because you're driving past, or do you want to have it delivered?
Yeah.
And that's an option that saves you time. But then the question is, what do you do with that time? Do you do this?
Yeah, right.
This is productive, or do you play Fortnite? I don't know, or whatever you do in your spare time.
Sometimes I do both. I started this year, not this year. For me, I think the new year started maybe like a week and a half ago, but just kind of like getting ready for what was going to be different about 2021. And I'm coming up. We've been married now for like October, so 14 months, and my wife is great, works for the state, not entrepreneurial whatsoever, does a phenomenal job of keeping the house like in order and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, somebody has to, right?
And not that that's her lot in life, but she does a great job with it. And these last 14 months, it's of being married is because things shift when you get married versus even when I think you're just in a long-term relationship with somebody. And we've really been having the conversation as we start to like think about kids and whatnot. It's like, all right now I'm working. I wake up at between 5:30 and 6:30, get ready, and pretty much fly out the door. If sometimes I have time to like feed the dog and take him out and, try and play with him to get his energy out. Go let the chickens out, make sure they haven't killed each other, make sure their water's good. Now we're in the winter. So, so it's like trying to do this stuff. But for the most part, I'm
chickens are a lot of work. I don't think because I've been tempted. My mother had chickens for years at her place in Fulton, and she finally got rid of them. She's like, Dan, you can't take a day off from these things. No. It's crazy. Like you would think they're just chickens, but like unless you want to mess with them, and if you go away, you got to have somebody look at them every day and do stuff with them every day. And
I feel bad because we've got them in like a run. Like they've got like twice as much space as technically they should have, right? And they've got 1,000 times more space than like the industry gives them.
Yeah.
But still, like they know whenever I walk out the back door, they're like, maybe he's going to let us out in the yard today. And they like flock to the gate. And I'm like, oh God. And because you have to watch them because like we have neighborhood cats that will,
right.
Like
yeah.
I'll let them out by themselves for like an hour or two in the yard and the chickens run around and eat and, love life. And then all of a sudden I'll like look out and there's a cat sitting there, waiting to, pounce on them. So, so you have to spend time with them for sure.
Absolutely.
And especially up until now, we just started getting eggs last week. So we've only had them since like July.
So you're starting to get the eggs and do the whole thing. So it's like now it's like you've got that reward.
Right.
Then you're going to get to a point where you have too many eggs.
Yeah, I know.
And you're like,
yeah,
what am I going to do with these eggs?
Right. Hopefully, the plan for us is to move to, somewhere with like a lot of land by, maybe the next year at some point because we live in the north side right now. And at that point, we'll just put a little roadside stand out there because then it's a tax break.
Right.
So, but with this business, and, we're 5 years in now for Eat Local New York, and it's cool. I mean, we just sold a bunch of cards the past few months. We raised $3,500 for the United Way.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. I love that stuff. I love being able to work with like doing the marketing for restaurants because, we've had some of them, especially that like one of them just started doing like really serious marketing this year for social media. And they've made more money this year than they did last during, COVID-19.
An unprecedented time.
I love doing that stuff. But
right.
But I made a list this like about a week ago. I was sitting down and just kind of like thinking through stuff. And I was like, I decided to write down the priorities of my life. Like in a typical day, if this pops up, like in a typical day, these are the things that are most important. So if something comes in that is like at a level 5, I need to deal with level 1 stuff first, level 2 stuff first. So it was something where I had to like legitimately write down those priorities. And for me, it was, a spiritual relationship, my relationship with my wife, like my health physically and mentally,
right.
The animals, right. The, family and friends and then animals. And, the business really fell down pretty low on that list of priorities.
Well, it's funny, so obviously, this was planned that I was going to come here, and I was thinking, well, what are we going to talk about? And, reflecting a little bit on 2020, which I think for a lot of people is, at a glance kind of negative. But I think if you were in a fortunate enough position to be financially secure and, have some security in that and to be in a place of decent health and not get sick and all those things, it was a great year for opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself and do some different things and, prioritizing and, figuring out what you're going to do with your life, and forever for my whole life, it hasn't been, what am I going to do this week, this month, right. In the next 6 weeks or whatever. It's been figuring out the rest of my life, which just got taken away from millions of people in this country. I mean, restaurant industry aside, I mean, just the rest of your life, what you've worked for. I mean, what I worked for my whole life is being a chef in a top tier place, and I accomplished that. And I was finally at that point where I was like, okay, I can kind of like kick back on my heels a little bit, manage some people, do the food I want to do, have a great, corporation I'm working for, and then boom, it's severely damaged and then taken away, right?
Yeah.
But what I was given back was a lot of time and, you know, again, what are you going to do with that time? You know, I fell into or got into some things that, you know, were great for me. I mean, my life as far as outside of restaurants was still restaurants.
Yeah.
It was still going out to eat, going out for drinks, meeting up with people. I mean, when you get out of work at between 9 and midnight every day, what else is there to do? You don't have to go to work until 11, 12, 2 o'clock. You know, you go out, you have some drinks, you sleep in, you wake up, you mess around. You don't really have a super productive first part of your day, unless you're doing things that are related to working.
Right,
you're just working more hours. So for me this year, you know, when the pandemic happened in March, it was like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? All right, well, I'm still working. Not a lot to do. I started fishing. Got really into fishing, really into fishing. Like I probably fished 150 days this year.
Wow. Where at?
Mostly bank fishing. So, I'm not going to tell you where. No, I'm kidding. They're my secret spots. In Baldwinsville a lot.
Okay.
I don't fish off the bridge. A lot of people fish off the bridge. Not my scene. I want to relax when I'm fishing if I'm bank fishing.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the lock, I did a lot of carp fishing. I caught these sheephead, huge fish, big carp. Then I got into
you catch and release, or do you eat them?
The only fish that I kept all year were fish that I didn't think would live.
Okay.
You know, if it was a mouth hook and it was a clean hook, whatever, I'd release them.
Yeah.
I fished 9 Mile Creek a lot. Nice rainbow trout.
Yeah.
9 Mile Creek is catch and release only.
Oh, really?
At least the section, I think it's in Camillus. It's the section in Camillus that I fish is open to the public. And these are public places. You know, I don't fish any private thing, and I don't have a boat.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother realm of fishing, which I would love to get into, but it's boats are stupid expensive.
Yeah.
I don't ever see myself being in a position that not even being able to afford a boat, because like you could get into a boat kind of inexpensive if you wanted to, but just having the time to actually use it. I mean, it's a time commitment to get it on the water, get it out, do this, do that, whatever.
Maintenance.
So and then I fished the Erie Canal actually a lot. The 9 Mile Creek Aqueduct actually in Warner's. Great bass fishing. I did a lot of carp fishing, which is actually super fun because you can just kind of set up all your stuff and wait. And if you catch something, great. And if you don't, it's better than sitting at home staring at the TV, right?
Yeah. Sounds like smoking.
And then I spent for a couple months a lot of time in Pulaski fishing Salmon River.
Oh, that's cool.
For the salmon run, which was a totally different experience. I mean, waders, you're walking in a rushing river. You know, there's a million guys all over the place. Fortunately for me, again, I think going back to not having the weekends off, you know, you go on a Tuesday, it's a lot different than going on a Saturday.
Right.
A lot less people. I went up there probably 10 or 15 times. I hooked up on several salmon, didn't catch any. Crazy experience. And honestly, just for people that aren't even into fishing, if you go in the late fall to Pulaski or Altmar, there's some very centrally located like places like in Pulaski that you can just watch people fish, and it's incredible. I mean, they're catching 20-pound salmon left and right.
I've got a buddy that him and like his 10-year-old kid catches these massive salmon. They're like bigger than him.
Yeah. It's really cool. But then also during that, I decided to get my hunting license. I hunted a lot when I was a kid with my dad on the West Coast. He lives in California, and you know, but I moved to Syracuse when I was like 13 years old, so I only got one deer hunting season with him. So 12 years old, like 12 is the cutoff, you know, to hunt big game. So I shot one deer, and this year I got my hunting license, bought a hunting rifle, bought all the gear. I'm lucky enough that my mother owns 56 or 66 acres up in Granby outside of Fulton.
Oh, that's cool.
and I shot 2 deer this year, a buck and a doe.
Oh, nice.
And it's funny because being a chef, it's, what do you know about food? How do you, how are you connected to it? And I spent a lot of time talking to farmers, hanging out with farmers, going to cattle farms, going to this, going to that. I've always had a garden.
Yeah.
Since I've owned my house, in the last 10 years, I've had a big garden. I've got like 4 or 5 raised garden beds. I grow vegetables and stuff just to do it.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like I spent $960 to get like $3.50 worth of green peppers. But
that's how I feel with the chickens.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like how many years of eggs will you have to get in order to make it worth it? But it's not about that, right?
No, yeah.
So I did the whole thing with the deer hunting, and I sat in a tree stand and I shot a 8-point buck, a nice buck. And one of the last days of the season, I shot a doe, and I was able to give that meat to my mother for letting me use the property. Cool. And then the other one I kept, and I've been, cooking venison, and it's a totally different kind of experience. I mean, even fishing, you catch a fish, you clean it, it's a fish.
Yeah.
I'm shooting a 200 or 160 pound deer.
Yeah.
And then field dressing it and, dragging it out of the woods and processing it and doing all that stuff is, you realize, this a sentient being, what I mean? It's a real live animal, and it came to the end because of your actions. Like, how are you going to handle that now?
Yeah.
Like, what your responsibility to that animal and to nature. The other thing that's wild is, one of the deer we took to a processor, and if you've never been to a deer processing facility, they're small, in the woods.
Yeah.
This is 3 miles from my mom's house. I mean, the guy, so the doe I took there, as the end of the season, I was talking to him, and he did 500 deer, processed 500 deer.
Wow.
Now you're talking one place in central New York, and I see deer still. I've been going out in the woods, and so now, because I'm not going to ice fish.
Yeah.
It's too expensive.
Yeah.
To get into it, and standing on. I'm not afraid of standing on a frozen lake, but it just doesn't sound fun to me. I want to relax and have a beer and chill out and hang out with my kid.
All right.
That's never going to happen. You're out there fishing for whatever,
Yeah.
So I've been trying to figure out, what's my winter hobby going to be? And bread making, I like that. It's fun. It's good. But it's only, it's
right.
How many days in a row can you make bread? I like to make beer.
Oh, that's cool.
Again, it's one day, then wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I've been going up to my mom's property, and now I'm been doing squirrel and rabbit hunting. Haven't really seen anything, but my real primary thing that I'm doing out there is looking for shed antlers. So antlers that have fallen off of deer because they fall off in the winter, and about now is when they start going. But I've been going and tracking them and just spending time in the woods, and I think realizing again what you don't know.
Yeah.
Go sit in the woods for a couple hours and really just, silently sit in the woods for, one day I was out there for 10 hours by myself completely. And it's probably not for everybody.
Yeah.
But for somebody like myself who's spent so much time in a room with no windows with 10 other people just going banging as hard as you can.
Right.
To then kind of transfer that and say, hey, I'm gonna go by myself and sit in the woods and probably not see anything. Or if I do, could I shoot it? Is it do I have a tag for, a buck still? Is it too far? Is it behind cover? Is it moving? Is it not one that I want?
Yeah. Can you handle it by yourself?
Can I get out of the woods by myself? Yeah. That was the doe that I shot actually was because I was by myself and I was a little farther away than I should have been. And it was about sunset, and, dragging one of those out of the woods is not an easy task for one person. So, it is, for me, that's kind of how I spent my my free time. And I think realizing that, everybody has a certain amount of time, or the same amount of time in a day.
Yeah.
And some people work more than others. Some people have other responsibilities, but really we all get the same amount of time. What are you doing with your time? Am I going to a bar and having drinks, which is fine. I still do. I'm not saying I don't ever do that, but are you doing things that are good for your brain, good for your mental health? And then what are those things for you? Is it, a couple years ago, I did a bunch of ceramics, like clay throwing and stuff. I found that super, super therapeutic, really rewarding when you get that finished product. They do it right over here too, somewhere, I think.
Oh, do they?
I don't know if it's in this.
There's a few potters in here.
There's like Syracuse Clayscapes or something like that.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know if it's here. If there's another complex like this down one,
the
or something.
Factory, I think.
Yeah, there might be over there.
Yeah.
But I think for me, and I hope for a lot of other chefs and people in the industry, that they were able to kind of use this time to either discover things that they're passionate about that fall outside of their job, or rediscover things that they kind of let go, because hunting was super that for me. It was like I did it when I was a kid. I have fond memories of it. Maybe I'll give it a shot again. I did it, and it turns out like I love it.
Yeah.
Like if that's what I would 100% give my, career up for, is if I could find a career, but just being in the woods.
Yeah.
Cause I just, I love it. It's something that, like, if I wasn't here talking to you today, I would have gone up into the woods today. I just had free time, and you know, it's mentally beneficial for me.
Yeah.
So
there's a guy I heard once give a talk, and he was saying that if he's married with kids, and he was saying that if he ever finds himself in the grocery store, like checking out another woman, and like legitimately like, oh, I could probably pick her, shit like that. Like, like thoughts that go beyond like, oh, she's hot, about a woman that's, other than his wife. He immediately says, I need an adventure. And so he'll go like backpacking for a week, or he'll like go, fly fishing or whatever it is, and he's like, it's the, it's when my brain is like focused on Amazon Prime and social media and what Netflix show am I watching tonight. And that's where like my focus is, like, that's where my life kind of stalls for, a couple of weeks. That's when I start to like get into a person I don't want to be, or that I am not. And I think for, I'm 34. I'm still really young for life, hopefully.
Right. Yeah.
And,
me too. I'm 35.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah.
And I enjoy what I do now. I enjoy like owning this business and working hard. But I've definitely found myself to be way more superficial today than I was 10 years ago. I found myself to be a lot more actively searching out like knowledge and how to like connect with people and things like that. And today I find myself being more interested in what other people think about me than really a lot of other stuff. I had this thing like years ago.
It's hard though, because that's drives your success in your career, which is like the part of your life that you're probably focusing on.
Yeah.
And so it's funny that you say that, because 100% for me, I mean, as a chef that was pretty, decently known, and like, in the, Sherwood Inn's like a pretty high profile place. Sure. And then going to, Marriott, which is definitely a super high profile space, and kudos to them. They just won a bunch of, like best of Syracuse stuff. Cool. I don't know what, I think it was Syracuse.com or something, but like best wedding space, best wedding planner,
cool.
Lindsay Cole, she's amazing. This kind of took me out of all that.
Yeah.
It all of a sudden didn't matter.
Yeah.
It did what people think of me, or how I'm presented, or what I do, or whatever. It's just do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
It's interesting how this year has kind of changed that.
Yeah.
I noticed, not to change the subject, when you went out, I noticed that you've got like 3 of the Ken Blanchard books.
Yeah.
Do you know that he has a summer home on Skinnias Lake? Have
Yeah,
you ever met him?
I haven't. Pull the mic a little closer to you. I haven't, but this is pretty funny. I bought those books when I got a regional director position when I worked at Metro Mattress. I started buying as many business books as I could. So I bought all his shit. And
not all of them. He did like 60 books.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true.
But the 1 Minute Manager is like that was his first one, I think.
My favorite is Raving Fans and
very good.
And Gung Ho.
I haven't read that one.
I was always trying to figure. Gung Ho is all about like internal company culture in terms of like getting like the staff or like centralized around like what you're doing is good for people or society, and like you're needed, basically. Like what you're doing in your job, whether you're a factory worker or the president, is needed, and getting people rallied around like you're making a difference basically is like
like you might have a small part in something, but it's a small part in a big picture, and without that small part, things fall apart.
Exactly.
Right.
And using that to then like get success out of, you know, your business. And so, so I know he does actually. So our family, my grandfather back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, if there was a cigarette machine, a jukebox, or a pinball machine anywhere in central New York, you had to get it through his company.
Oh, wow.
And so, and his name was Anthony Tringale. And
man, those things don't exist.
I know
anymore.
They're like danger zones, especially during COVID.
Absolutely. But cigarette machine?
I know.
Come on.
God damn. Modern Malt still has one, but I don't think it's operational.
Or it has like, I've seen them with like art in them, or stuff like that, like cool stuff, but it's not cigarettes.
Yeah. So he owned a place at Apple Tree Point. He owned 2 camps like way back in the day on Skinny Atlas, and then the Rinaldi family, who owns United Auto Supply, and they have Jammers and Stratamia.
Yep.
Jim Sr., who's now deceased, and so is my grandfather, but Jim Sr., they had a huge place just a point down from where my grandfather was. And so they were friends somehow, I forget. But anyways, Jim Sr.'s place, the Rinaldi's place, it was essentially like 4 townhomes, a complex on this point. They owned the point. I mean, it was just gorgeous. So Jim Sr. would always like tell my grandfather, sell your places, just rent one of our spots. You don't have to deal with the maintenance or the taxes. And so that's what our family did. And we rented a place from them for like 30 years. And then after my grandparents passed away, our family decided, because my grandfather was successful and, you know, smart with his money, we decided to, after they had both had passed away, the whole extended family, we bought back the old camps that my grandfather had originally built. And we sold one, and then they built a new house, tore the other one down and built a new spot because it needed to be. Anyways, they had that for a few years and then sold it. And so now we rent, like my immediate families, like my brothers and sisters and their whole family. We'll rent a place on Skinny Atlas once a year for a week in the summer.
Yeah.
And like even when I lived in Kentucky as a kid, our vacations were Skinny Atlas. We never...
Great place to have a vacation, right?
But it was never Disney or anything like that. Every year it was 1 or 2 weeks on Skinny Atlas. You know, back when I was a kid, we would just come up and my grandparents rented the place, you know, so we would just stay with them. But because they rented it for the whole summer. But, you know, now it's at least a week out there. And there is nothing in this world like Skinny Atlas Lake.
It's funny because I think I'd been, before I worked at the Sherwood, I think I'd been to Skinny Atlas once in my life. And then I worked there for, 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. And it's a great little town.
Yeah.
It's got a great base of people that live in the town and in the village, and it's not just the lake. I mean, there's so many great things there. Yeah. It's all I could be wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure that the town board or chamber of commerce, whoever it is, doesn't allow like any corporate things to come in. I mean, like literally it's like a burned dairy.
Right.
Is like the most corporate thing.
Yeah.
There's not even a gas station in the town,
Yeah.
like in the village itself. All privately owned, and 90% of those, but most of those businesses, I believe, are owned by people that live in the village, which is super cool.
I pray to God because I mean, there's been so many issues, like in the past couple of years, with like different people wanting to like come in and change it, politically and whatnot. I pray to God that it stays the way it is for a while.
I think. I mean, you'd have to talk to people that live there and stuff, but I think it'll the village itself will stay the way that it is for a long time, and the people that want to change it or think that it needs changing, I think, are flash in the pan type people. They'll move on to the next thing, because if you could go change a different spot with less resistance, then you would do that. But Ken Blanchard, so the cool part about Ken Blanchard, and the reason why I know that he lives in Skinny Lake is because every year at the end of the summer, he would come down to the Sherwood and do like a little mini seminar with the people that work at the Sherwood. That's cool. And I think like we bought him dinner.
Okay.
But he would like come down and we'd like send him a carrot cake for his birthday and like all this stuff. And I don't know if he's around anymore. I'm assuming he is.
I think he is. I don't know if he's still. Well, I think as early as last summer. So my parents, I am too. But my parents are like involved in church and shit. So like we grew up in like a really Christian home. So my parents always volunteered in church. I'm not as active as I used to be. But anyways, my parents have these like monthly gatherings at their house, and it's just for like pastors from like Central New York. And my dad's a chef, and so, or was a chef, and so they like turn it on, cook all this amazing food for them, just let them come and hang out and chill. It's like the equivalent of like all the restaurant owners getting together and hanging out, right? So, but when they had their place in Skinny Atlas, they would do them there in like the summer and the spring. And Ken Blanchard used to come to them.
Yeah, and he's very active in the religious sphere.
Yeah, and so one night my mom was like, "Oh, Ken Blanchard's in town. We were going to invite him out." I was like, "How the fuck do you know who Ken?"
Yeah, right.
I think his stuff. It really is. It's great, and I think, books like Gung Ho, The 1 Minute Manager, Raving Fans. I mean, they're such simple things that people can capture. That are old. It's not like they're,
right.
They weren't,
well, it's kind of funny too, because with stuff like that, when you read it, it's all common sense. It's cooking, right? It's the same thing. It's like, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. We were at my mom's house for Christmas, a couple days before Christmas, and I made a meal, and they were like, "Oh, give me the recipe," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "Oh, you don't want to give your secrets?" I'm like, it's not about it's not about what's in the book. It's about what you do with it, right? Exactly. It's there's such simple ideas, but it's all about acting them out every day, all the time, believing it, living it, doing the thing. And the same thing, goes into probably any industry. Is, all this stuff is simple,
right?
The restaurant industry is simple.
I just had this conversation with Rich Strube sitting right there. Just the other day, and I've had this debate with Cody Dedishu before, and that is the difference between you guys being craftsmen versus artists. So I view a chef, and really anybody who can do anything.
Don't say an artist.
I
disagree. It's a disagreement, and any chef you talk to is going to disagree.
Well, Cody,
unless you're Ferran Adria or Rene Renzepi.
And I get that, and Rich essentially was saying the same thing. Like Rich, I forget the chef that he mentioned, some world famous chef, but he was like, their menu is like a poem, right? Like they intentionally, and that's kind of pretentious and whatever. It is its thing, but whatever. But my point is Eamon Lee, for example. Eamon, the other day, him and D'Onofrio at Gerhar's on day one, they're building a sourdough, doing other folds, everything like that throughout the whole day. Day two, because we have this amazing test kitchen, we have a rationale, right? The new one in the fucking test kitchen. So they're like, we want to see how like legit sourdough is going to react in a rationale. Like, can it do it right?
Probably pretty well.
We have to figure out some of the settings.
You got to figure out, but once you figure it out, it's going to do all right.
Right. So, and then I set the camera up in front of it to do a time lapse while it was in the ration.
Well, it rises and bakes and the whole thing, right?
So Eamon has because Eamon, he's like the most systematic person that there exists. But he has his he isn't. He's not the most systematic person that exists. But he's like really, he was like, whatever. Eamon, I don't think you're listening to this, but you're a great person. Anyways, I mean this with all due respect, but he has this 8x11 printed out, and it's like this color-coded grid spreadsheet of like what to do, when to do it for the sourdough.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there looking it through and checking.
He gave me some of
off.
that starter last week, and I don't have that. Yeah. I just make it.
Right. But I could follow his color-coded instructions to every, detail. And I'm never going to make sourdough the way that Eamon does.
Right.
Right? I'm not going to do, because at the end of the day, I believe that every chef has some form of, I'm not saying that like they sit there in front of the mirror and like, well, look at me, but that they have some form of artistry in them that like no one else can cook food the way Dan Hudson can.
Right. Well, the argument against that, in my opinion, is that, so yesterday I was cooking dinner, right? And I wanted to make these potatoes that I'd never made before, right? They're Hasselback potatoes.
Yeah.
You ever had them?
Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Right.
I just never made them before. It's not like a hard technique or anything like that. I just never took the time to do it.
They're a pain in the ass.
No, not really.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I fucking hate the cutting, just trying to make them precise.
Yeah, but, again, so that's where it comes down to me to being a craftsman is like I've spent countless hours with a knife in my hand, right? Like it's okay, so you show me a technique, I can watch a video or read the technique on a recipe and then execute it, right? Without too much further instruction, because I've done enough knife work in my life that I know how to use a knife and I know what to do to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
I know how a potato feels. I know my knife. I know this, that, and the other. And that's really where I think it comes down to being more of a craftsman. So I was making the potatoes. I made those. They didn't come out exactly how I wanted them, but they were good. But I made hollandaise. Well, I made béarnaise. Which is hollandaise with other shit in it. But my girlfriend was like, she was hanging out. I was cooking. I'm like, I'm going to cook dinner, but like, I've got a small house. Let's hang out, listen to music, whatever. And she's like, what are you doing? So I'm explaining it to her. She's like, how hard is this to make? And I'm like, well, because I'm like talking to her while I'm doing it. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing, but I've made hollandaise thousands of times in my life, I mean, just so many times over and over and over again. But I think back to, when I learned how to do it and how many times I screwed it up and how difficult and how much concentration it took. And it's just it's, in my opinion, it's like a more of a craft because it's just perfection through practice.
Yeah.
It's all it is just perfection through practice. Now, there is just like a carpenter, is a craftsman, but there is artistry involved in it.
Right.
But for something to be truly art, and only art,
right,
it has to what? What does it have to do? It has to invoke it has to invoke emotion.
Yeah.
And all emotions.
Yeah.
Most people can't get, if you're cooking, you stop on happy.
Yeah.
You don't want sorrow.
Yeah.
Or whatever, like, well,
you might when the plate's done. When it's empty.
And that's an interesting thing. There's chef Heston Blumenthal. He's a British chef. He had a restaurant called the Fat Duck, and he did a Christmas dinner, and like one of the courses, I remember reading about this. I can't remember if it was the first course or the last course, whatever, but it was like a wafer, and it was supposed to represent like the birth of Christ, and it is, so they fed it to everybody, and it was supposed to taste the way a newborn baby smells. That's transcends food, right? That's beyond food.
That's crazy.
A couple years ago, I ate at Blue Hill at Stone Barn.
Oh wow, really?
best dining experience of my life. And I was so sick too. I don't know if I got food poisoning or if I was having a panic attack or if I was like just sick, but like I was sick, like stomach nauseous, the whole thing. Like kind of the day before, and then the day of, like it was weird because there was a snowstorm and the restaurant got closed for the day we had reservations, and they were like, but we can put you in tomorrow. So like we had to extend our hotel and this, that, and the other. And it was like 22 courses. That's a whole nother, when you eat at a place like that, I don't know if you have or not, like at 11 Madison or, you know, any of these types of places. When you eat a meal like that, it goes beyond food. I mean, the amount of artistry and creativity and attention to detail, but then also like whimsical thinking that goes into something like that. That's when food becomes art. Yeah. And I don't know, and this isn't a dig on anybody, because I include myself into this, is like, I don't know if there's anybody in Central New York that really is on that level. And it's not even about, you know, wanting to be on that level or the desire or putting in the hard work or anything. These are people that are so smart and so advanced, that they could have been wildly successful at anything. It's like thinking about like if Elon Musk decided to be a chef, right? That's Rene Redzepi. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's a whole nother, you're almost like, why are you wasting your brain on this? But the thing is that guys that do that go on that level they're not, because they end up coming up with these like revolutionary ideas that do change the world. Daniel Barber. Yeah. Is, I mean, everybody knows, right? Everybody that's into this knows that guy, I mean, there's foods that you eat that exist because of him. Yeah.
I mean, Dan is the one that first, like, that's the way that I ever heard of Klaus Martins. And then, you know, Cody Dedishu, who was at 11 Waters, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, when it opened.
Right. Yeah. We did some tasting thing there with Michael John Haggerty when he was there, and he set it up, and Cody came out and he would presented like this bread, and it was like, this is grain from Klaus Martins, you know, and I was like, holy fuck, like, you know this? Like, no one else in Syracuse, you know.
It's right there.
Right, exactly.
It's like 60 miles away from there.
And the closest I've ever gotten to Blue Hill is I was in New York City it was the first time I'd ever gone to New York City by myself. It's like meeting a girl, she flew in from Cincinnati, and we were, you know, whatever. Anyways, my brothers lived down there. So, but it was the first time I had gone into the city by myself. Usually I was with family or somebody.
Right. Yeah.
And, so I spent the whole day just doing the things in New York City I wanted to do. And I went to, Ivan Orkin's, you know, ramen shop.
Oh yeah,
you know, Ivan Ramen, and you know, then I wandered over to this cat cafe coffee shop, and you know, sat there and did some shit, and then I wandered over to Washington Square Park, and you know, right over there by NYU is Blue Hill in the city, and I tried to see if I could get a reservation or something, and obviously I couldn't.
Yeah.
But I took a picture of the front door, you know, and but the closest I think we do have in that space outside of maybe the Finger Lakes and you know, in the immediate Syracuse area. So probably we can get that if we go down to Ithaca, you know, arguably Tim and, you know, Hardeman and Utica, you know, the Finger Lakes, you know, if we go out, you know, towards Rochester. The closest we get is St. Urban, you know, Jared is doing...
Which I've eaten there once, and I mean, just the people that were eating there, I was like, wow, this is every Syracuse celebrity that there is. I mean, Boeheim's right here, and, you know, Alexander, you know, Alexander Catalano, right. Tom Alexander, whatever his name is, sitting next to me, and then somebody, I'm like, holy crap. And that was probably the best dining experience that I've had in Syracuse, and it's super sad because they were like on the precipice, right? Like they were about to explode. They were exploding, and then all this stuff happened, and I don't know what's happened. What's become of them? Good. Are they? I hope that they are.
I mean, I don't want to say that they're doing well because I don't know.
But they've been able to like maintain and like do some change visions and do some different stuff.
He started like during the orange shutdown. He started doing like the croquettes. Like their takeout is you get this like really high end, essentially Dutch oven that your food for 2 or 4 people comes in and you pay for it. And then if you return it, you get your deposit back. If not, you keep it. You know, that's how he's doing it. We went there like year and a half ago, maybe, I don't know, a while ago, last year. And we went for dinner, and there's very few restaurants that I'll go in where like I'll put down, like if I make a reservation that it's Eat Local New York, and just because I don't think a lot of people know about it. But there was one of them I wanted them to know. And they wound up, and we ordered like their 3-course and like a cheese plate, and Jared wound up sending out one of everything on the menu that night, and it was just phenomenal. And then we went for our anniversary dinner back in October, and I mean, we literally sat down, and I just said, and there's a few restaurants that I'll go in and I'll say, like when they take the order, I'll say whatever they think I should have. I'll do that at like Eden. I'll do that at Deefy if I can, and I'll do that at Amano.
Right.
And so we did that night for our anniversary dinner, and we literally said like, we want a bottle of wine that doesn't go over $300, and we want for dinner whatever Jared thinks that we should have. And they were like, well, that's good because he already has like.
Yeah, he already picked for you.
They were like, he's actually cooking your meal for you. And I was like, holy fuck. And it was like, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't really know. I don't know him. Like I don't know anything about him. I don't think he wasn't like, he's from Syracuse, I'm assuming, but he wasn't like a Syracuse chef.
No, I think he left before he was in like the food scene. I forget all of his story, but I know he was in like big restaurants
like Noma or something like that. Yeah.
And if you Google him, the first things that pop up are like stories of like articles on Eater of like he was let go from some big restaurant, and he like cut the cables.
Yeah, I read all that. Like right. Whatever, that's cool, man.
I know
whatever.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, fucking A, man, that's awesome. And there's certain chefs like I don't want to get to know them too well. Like, I
don't want to know any chefs. No, I'm playing, but like, no, I get what you're saying though. Like, just do your thing, man. Like,
right.
Be you.
I've hung out with Alex a few times during all this quarantine shit. We've had him come into Gerhar's and do like cooking videos, and I don't really want to get to know him all that. Like, I don't want to one day become friends with Alex from Amano because I don't want to become too familiar with somebody to the point where I like start to lose a little bit of like their food becomes familiar.
Right.
Like when we go to Amano and I say when I say whatever Alex thinks I should have, he usually sends out like 4 or 5 other items, and I don't know anything about food. When the first time we went to St. Urban. As we were leaving, Jared had because everything is so perfectly timed there. As we were leaving, he had timed it so like he like walked out of the kitchen and perfectly met me at like the station as we were getting ready to walk out the door. And he was like, "How was everything?" And I said, "I'm so sorry you had to put that much effort into what you did tonight for me." I was like, obviously,
he was probably like, whatever.
Right. I was like, obviously, everything was amazing, but I don't know I don't know enough to fully appreciate what he did.
And it's funny because what I appreciate when I go out to eat, and there's a lot of different reasons for people to go out to eat, and I think that that gets lost on the everyday person. Like when I go out to eat, like sometimes I just want Tully's tenders, right? Like what I mean. Like I'm not that worried about it. I eat normal food too. I probably eat worse than most people. But when I go to a place like that, like my expectation is that number one, that everything's delicious. Obviously, service is a huge portion of it, and they killed it. FLX Table
I haven't been.
Go. Yeah. Amazing. Another great, just cool idea, great service, great, and really cool atmosphere. Obviously pre-COVID, you were sitting, if you had 4 people, you're sitting with, 6 other people or 8 other people that you don't know, but it's all one table, and they really make it interactive for everybody, and it was really nice. But what I want to do is sit down and be served something that I don't 100% understand.
Yeah.
And for me, that's not a small task.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know a lot about food. It's kind of, but when I get stumped and I'm just like, what is this? Like, what is this technique, or what is this ingredient? When people get me on an ingredient, I'm like, whoa. FLX table is a good example of that. And it wasn't that I didn't know the ingredient, but I didn't know that you could eat it. And it was tiger lilies.
Really?
Yeah, the petals off of tiger lilies, and then they used the roots in like a risotto that had a bunch of different stuff in it, and like, I mean, they're ditch lilies.
Yeah, right.
Who eats that? Yeah. I've got 1 million of them growing in my yard. Like, I didn't even know that was an edible option. And then upon some research, the whole plant at different stages of the year is edible.
Wow.
And so then you start to think like, wow. Okay, foraging, what do you think of when you think of foraging? You think of like morel mushrooms and,
not killing yourself.
Trying not to kill yourself. But you don't think like, hey man, probably half the stuff in my backyard's edible.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of so low brow that if you use it in fine dining, it's highbrow. It's like, now I'm paying $100 to eat ditch lilies. This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just somebody knows more than you.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. And like, that's what I like. I think for me, the meal that I had at Blue Hill at Stone Barn was like, wow, these people know so much more than I know.
Yeah.
And that's really what, when you think you're hot shit, and then somebody knocks you down a peg. Like, I like that when I go out to eat. Like, I want somebody to show me something I didn't know existed, and it could be, a roadside tamale place in Southern California, whatever.
Yeah.
Or it could be, Blue Hill Stone Barn. It could be the highest end thing ever. But if if it shows me something I didn't know about, that's what like kind of turns me on.
I hate to reference this movie because, you're a chef and we're, it's a food podcast, right? But the movie Chef. I mean, have you seen it with Jon Favreau?
Yeah, I watched it once a couple of years ago.
I mean, I think, and maybe it is for some industry people, but for non-industry people, like non-cooks or chefs, it's like, wow, that's what it's like, like that's the true passion, and which may or may not be accurate. But I think like the happiness and like the passion of food that like is exemplified in that movie, no matter if it's that roadside tamale place or if it's Blue Hill, when you find somebody who has that sort of like passion for food, for like actually preparing food and knowing it's good and putting it out there, when you find that in whatever varying degree, that's invaluable. That's
right.
That's kind of the artistry I think that I think of.
Absolutely. And the thing that sucks about it is that it's so easy to lose that. Mm-hmm. Even if you, and not even to lose it, because, I've definitely been in points in my career. COVID's a great example, of what am I doing? Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I worked so hard for. This isn't the best food I can put out. This isn't, these people don't appreciate my skill set, and then you get in your own head and you have to reevaluate. And it's also, it's hard to, move away from that and to get your head back in the right space.
Yeah. I'm just going to get a little bit more.
It's a tricky kind of balancing act between, especially if you don't own a restaurant, where in some respects it's probably harder for chefs that do own restaurants, because then you're just battling yourself against customers, right?
Yeah.
And but when you don't own a restaurant, now you throw ownership into the mix, and you have to decide what direction to go, and you can really lose yourself in that pretty easily.
I told you off air we were doing that show with Tim from Buried Acorn and Keith Will It Ferment, and when we were filming it last weekend, whenever it was, I was like asking them, all right, why are we doing this? In my head, I'm constantly going to how are you going to make $1 from it?
Right.
If I put out a Facebook post for a client, if I put out a Facebook post, it's like, all right, is this building brand? Am I going to get a customer? Am I going to get somebody who likes me? Whatever the case is. So as I asked them, I was like, well, what's the point of doing the show? Is it you're trying to get more people to like directly buy beer from you? Are you, trying to like start a new, what is it? And Tim said, we're just trying to do something like that's funny and fun just to get our mind off.
It's just something that we want to do.
And
that's somebody that actually likes what they do.
Right.
But they also live in a world where they like what they do, but they also do what they do to make a living.
Yeah.
And so they don't get to do exactly what they like.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing is like, and you get this all the time. Well, you must love what you do. Well, like, I don't know, 5% of the time I love what I do. I mean, I love cooking. I love the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
I like the people. I like all that. But like, what I like doesn't pay a bill. It's what I think the customer's expectation of the restaurant is.
Yeah. What
the expectation of ownership is, whether that has to do with actually the food that you're serving or how profitable it is or whatever. And it's like I said, it's nice to have an outlet for that. I'm sure for these guys that are brewers, like, I mean, I'm not super familiar with either one of their, beer lines, but Buried Acorn makes great beer. But they make the same recipes all the time.
Right.
They don't get a lot of time to just go off and do whatever they want. And so this is probably a great experience for them to get back into that.
Mike Mintier from IBU had said that in the past. They let me attend one of their brewery meetings, like the New York State Brewers Associations. And he had said that in like this meeting that they had with like 30 of them at WD Brews, or no, it was at Willow Rock. But he was saying, listen, we all are buying the same fucking hops that our customers want. The West Coast, we're all making the super hazy, juicy, whatever IPA, even though we all want to be making this and wish people that were drinking that. And but we're doing it because that's what customers want, what customers, what is paying the bills. And
a brewer is a great example because like you go and you get like I like beer as much as the next guy, but like I like that juicy IPA.
So do I.
I like it. It's good. It tastes good. But I also don't make beer all day and drink beer all day. And like those guys can drink, man.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I know.
You think you can drink?
Yeah.
Don't mess with brewers.
Tim we did the Thanksgiving video, and we had Tim come in as just like we were trying to do like a full Thanksgiving Day meal, and my intention was to have like an 8-hour long cooking video. We did it for Gerhard, so like you'd turn it on at 9 and it'd still be playing at 5, and
right.
We were going to have D'Onofrio making an entire Thanksgiving meal from start to finish. And after editing, it was like an hour and a half long. But
that's the only interesting things that happen.
Yeah, because a lot of it was just like quietly there chopping,
Right, yeah.
But we had Tim come in, and we were like, all right, well, we should have like during the day, you're gonna have a couple drinks. So one of the things we had Tim come in from Buried Acorn, and just all they did was just drink a beer and talk. But at like 11 a.m., Tim, fucking pounded an entire beer in a gulp,
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy. I went to where was it? BCTC, Belgium Comes to Cooperstown.
Oh,
so
yeah.
At Omegang. And that's a really cool event. Hopefully it comes back. I would highly recommend it to anybody that's into beer at all or just cool shit.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking cool. But you get to talking to these brewers, and they're like, I'll have a beer with you. And I was like, man, you talked to 200 people today. Like, how are you alive? Like, you're just like, you know, and it's strange. I could never do it. I can't drink like that. Like, I don't have it in me.
Right.
Physically.
Yeah.
I
was going to send a quick text.
Yeah, no worries. There's something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, you know, the other thing was, I think that the other opportunity for chefs right now is in the consulting sphere. I did a little bit of it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because now you're in a time and place where everybody wants to have, or really needs to have, like a chef created menu. But not everywhere can afford a chef on their payroll.
Right.
And I did a bunch of work with Lock One Distillery.
That's cool.
They had closed, you know, during the pandemic. Then they were doing bottle sales and whatever. And then they reopened and they were just doing snacks and stuff. They didn't have anybody in the kitchen. And through a couple mutual friends, I kind of got connected with them and got their pizza. They did a lot of pizzas and stuff before, you know, when they first opened. That's what they did. Super cool space. Yeah. Really awesome people.
Yeah.
And they've got a metal fabrication business. Okay. The family does that. So they actually built that whole space out. I don't know if you've been in there or not, but it's... I
did an interview with, I forget his name. I want to say Darren, but I know that's not it. Anyways, one of them back right when Q's Juice, that whole controversy.
Right, yeah. Which
I have a bottle of it unopened.
Yeah, I saw it. It was reminded me of it. But I think that's a good opportunity for chefs too, you know, where there's places like that, you know, they can't put a guy like me on their payroll. Yeah. I mean, they can't, and they shouldn't, you know, realistically, they shouldn't. But they do want that chef's touch, and they do want the advice of somebody that knows what they're doing and say, hey, buy this, buy that. Here are your recipes. Here's your book.
Yeah. You
know, now execute it. You know, I'll come in a month and we'll see where we are. And I think that's a good opportunity for any chefs out there. It's funny, you know, we're really trying to make some money. You know, as a consultant, you know, what do you think? The first thing that we should do is, well, you should probably not hire me, because I'm a huge waste of money. But I think that there's if done correctly and responsibly, it's a good alternate income, like a secondary income for chefs, where you can spend your personal time. It doesn't take a whole, you know, if you have the right client, if you've got a good relationship and everything, it's a good opportunity for chefs to kind of be heard a little bit more.
Listen, it really is invaluable, because there are so many fucking people that open a restaurant, that get a loan, and that maybe they have some sort of an idea, but they really don't know. And kind of going back to people that are wasting money on like bad marketing, there's people that are wasting money on bad cooks.
Yeah, or you know, it's the sad part about it is that 90% of those people aren't wasting money on bad cooks. They're spending money on people that aren't qualified to actually do the job. So I ended up hiring a girl there, and I interviewed a bunch of people, and I mean, I interviewed people I know, and passed on them.
Yeah,
because it was you know. You're not gonna. You don't want to do this. It's a 1, maybe 2 person kitchen. If it was jam and busy, you could maybe put 3 people in this tiny kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it was, you know, the girl that I hired, everything I showed her how to do, she did it perfect. You know, everything. I gave her all the tools. And I have no doubt in my mind. I haven't talked to them in a while. I don't know if she's still there. I hope that she is, and she was really cool. She had all the skill set to run the kitchen and make it function, But there's no way that I don't think she could have gotten from point A to point B. I got her to point B. She's got to take it from there. Yeah. But it's the financial side of it. It's the, menu design. It's the menu mix. It's the costing of it. It's the recipes and the testing and all that kind of stuff that takes somebody with a lot of experience to really be able to execute well.
Yeah.
And these small places, what ends up happening to them is they find somebody that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But that person probably doesn't write anything down.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a system. If they get hit by a bus or walk out or quit or get fired or whatever happens to them, then you're back at square one.
Right. But not a lot of people go back to square one. A lot of these places.
Yeah, that's the big problem.
I mean, I do struggle with the idea that not every place that I walk into is supposed to wow me with their culinary experience. I mean, every place is supposed to put out edible food that's hot, that doesn't get people sick. Obviously,
and it should be good.
Tastes good, right?
Right.
And it's amazing to me how many places exist in Syracuse and that have existed for a while that don't tick all those boxes. But I mean, obviously, that's that's the baseline,
right?
I mean, I'm not going to expect to go out to eat every night and get experience I would get at the Sherwood or at Mono or Eden or whatever. But you still have to put out good food, right? But there are a lot of these places where they bring on person A and it's person A's menu and it's person A's expertise and, it's their way of doing things and their flavor profile and whatever it is. And then they leave and person B comes in, but it's still person A's art. It's like me trying to repaint a Picasso.
Right.
It's never going to look like a fucking Picasso.
And, beyond that is the Sherwood's a great example of this. And the Sherwood and what I bought into there. And I think, what whoever the next long-term chef is there needs to buy into there is that it's not about a place like that isn't about the chef. It's about the Sherwood, right? So how do you maintain the quality, the expectation, the classics, but then stay relevant as times change, right? So, there's different places for different things. Take Deefy. You take Cody out of the equation of Deefy, close it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for the people invested in that
right.
or anything that, but I mean, that's, in my opinion, what I can tell from the outside. I haven't eaten there, but what I can tell from the outside looking in is that he's the heartbeat of the place.
Yeah. I mean,
not every place needs a person to be the heartbeat of the place.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if, Rebecca and I are going to, no, you're right. They don't. But there's still, unless you're going with I don't know, unless I'm going to through a Tully's, I can tell the difference between, let's say, and I can't tell the difference between these places, but let's just say the difference between Tussone's and Dominic's.
Right.
It's the same extended family. They're both Italian restaurants, but I can, arguably I'm going to tell the difference between A and B.
Right.
And again, I struggle with that and not expecting to be wowed at every restaurant that I enter. At some point you kind of have to understand that it's just, I have to understand that, listen, it's food. It's just, it's going to fill you up and, be hot, and that's really all that you can expect from it.
Right. Well, and I mean, if you own a restaurant and it's a restaurant, I'm not talking about, it's one thing if it's a bar that has food.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever.
Right.
It's mozzarella sticks.
Yeah.
It's fine. Cisco.
Yeah.
Bing, bang, boom. Right. But if you're actually trying to put food out, then you should be at least wowed by it a little bit. You should be satisfied. You should be, whether it's a big portion or, I mean, there's so many different things,
right.
That do it. But a great example is a pizza.
Yeah.
Right. A pizza's food on point.
Right. Phenomenal.
On point. I don't know who the chef is there.
That is a really good point, actually, because it doesn't
matter. And if the chef that's out there that is listening to this, that's the chef of a pizza, like you're killing it.
I should find out who it is.
You're killing it, but like, and I hope it's, that's a great chef.
Yeah.
Whoever's doing that, whoever's executing that, because it seems to me as though if that person changed, they've set it up in a way that they don't need to be there.
The same is true at Alto and Otro.
Right. Exactly. Great guys working in the kitchens.
Yeah.
No doubt they're executing it, but the system is there for it to be executed by people that care. You got to still have to have people that care. You still have to have people that are talented. You still have to have these things, but it's not about one person. And that makes,
maybe it's just about the culture.
It's super about the culture is definitely very important. I would also say that the systems are important.
Yeah.
I mean, when you work on a line and you work in a kitchen, you work in a factory.
Yeah.
It's a machine. It's about getting the same thing out to the customers every single time so that it's indistinguishable of who made it, right?
Yeah.
And so in these places like a pizza, I would say that probably a lot of their success has to do with their systems.
Yeah.
Obviously a great vision, obviously great ingredients. A lot of care goes into it, but also their systems have made it so that it is streamlined in a way that it's consistent.
Yeah.
Chefs play a part in that. Like, it's your job to create those things, but to truly be successful in this industry, in this realm, I'm 35 years old. Like, when I'm 55 years old, if I'm still a chef, I don't want to be standing in the kitchen every day.
Right.
And if I have to, then I didn't do my job right. In my opinion.
Yeah.
It's a tricky thing. But
would you want to be standing in the kitchen at 55 if you owned it?
Not on the line.
Yeah.
I think for several reasons. Number one, I've got a lot of other things I want to do with my life other than stand in the kitchen for the rest of it. And although I do love it and whatever, it takes so much time and energy that you don't have a whole lot for other things.
Yeah.
And I would like to have that time for other things. And I think, for me, being a chef owner is desirable because that's the route that I have available to me.
Yeah.
But at a certain point in time, when do you just become an owner?
Right.
And when do you kind of, find the right people, let the reins go and say, hey, you're my GM.
Yeah.
You're my chef. It's the same thing, with the GM. It's there's so much focus on the food side of restaurants where, a bad service can ruin a good meal.
Yeah.
But it is very hard for excellent food to make up for bad service.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. If you got truly bad service and you were served an excellent, how good that meal would have to be for you to overlook terrible service.
Yeah.
But you can have mediocre food, and if the service is on point, you're gonna go okay.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I just had this conversation actually with a friend that's not in the industry whatsoever, but had a terrible service experience at a restaurant last night for New Year's Eve. And, they were out of a lot of stuff for food-wise because they had sold out. They got slammed. They sold 300 lobster tails by 6 p.m. But the waitress handed him the menu and was like, half of it's gone. And he was like, well, then why are you giving me the menu? It was just bad service, and the food, he was like, it was okay, but we're never going back there.
Right. But that situation handled properly,
yeah,
it could be a different story.
Yeah. Do you think restaurants are too big nowadays? Even outside of like a COVID world, like even like in January of this year and before, do you think they're too big? Do you think they should be smaller and focus on like their niche?
So I think that's yes and no. It really think about my favorite restaurants that I've ever been to, my favorite restaurants in the world, and then my favorite restaurants in Syracuse and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Great example is like the fish fryer, right? They took like the upstate New York fish fry model and made it awesome. Really good. I love their food, and they're super focused, and it's a cool little spot. It's little. So reasons for restaurants being smaller: number one, less staff. Number two, you can focus. When you can focus on specific things, you can execute them better. Number three, if you're focused, then people don't go to your restaurant that don't want to eat your food. So, the Mexican restaurant with the hamburger on the menu doesn't have to exist.
It's called a hamburguesa.
Okay. Is that what that's the technical, that's what they call it in Mexico. So when that's a win-win-win, right? It's a win for the employees. They know what they're doing. They can focus. They can make good food. It's good for the employer. They can focus their attention, and it's good for the customer. You know what you're going to get. If I go to a fish fryer, I'm going to get shrimp po' boy, and
right.
I love it. It's awesome, and it's some good beer. So yeah, I mean, I think new restaurants opening up and like being small and stuff like that is probably the way of the future, but I think that there is still a world in which the big Sherwood Inns, those types of places exist. But I think maybe they already all exist.
Yeah.
Balthazar in New York City. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but big brasserie, bustling, tables this far, far apart from each other. Everybody's crammed in, 3 meals a day. Yeah. But they're focused on French food. It's very good. They exist, but you'd also be kind of crazy to open a place like that. If you took the Sherwood Inn, when Bill Eberhard bought it, it was going to be torn down, 50 years ago.
Wow.
If you took a building like that and wanted to renovate it and make it into a restaurant, I mean, it'd cost you $25 million. There's no way it'd be
worth it.
Financially irresponsible to try and do that, because it just wouldn't work. So I think that you're going to see smaller restaurants, and I think that's a good thing. And I think that the new market is, there's always going to be the sit down, eat in, restaurants, whether they're casual, fine dining, every level of the spectrum. I think like the Applebee's, Chili's, that kind of stuff is going to go by the wayside, because just why, when you could eat at Chipotle or any number of QSR places, which are essentially the same thing, just with limited service.
Yeah.
Which, why? But I think the virtual restaurant, ghost restaurant kind of sphere is something that you're going to see start to take hold in smaller metropolitan areas, Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, which is already in big cities.
Right.
If I was gonna invest into a restaurant or come on board to a startup right now, it would probably be in that space, in like the ghost restaurant idea.
Yeah.
That's today. I mean, tomorrow that could change. I mean, the industry is just rapidly changing, I think.
And we don't know what public perception is going to be once things open back up.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, coming back to it's going to take a long time for it to go back.
Yeah.
Even if everything opened tomorrow, people wouldn't, and they said, no mask, COVID's gone, whatever, people would still be freaked out, and they wouldn't necessarily go running back into restaurants like they were before.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of having a restaurant that only does delivery, the caveat on that is that you have to do it really well.
Yeah.
Which has been a downfall for a lot of restaurants at this time, because there's places that didn't operate in that at all.
Right.
They didn't do any to-go business. They're not set up for it.
Yeah.
That their food doesn't travel well. If you're a sushi place, why would I buy to-go sushi from you when I could go to Wegmans, who's already figured it out, who already has the containers, you know what I mean? Like their to-go sushi is probably better than your to-go sushi, even though your in-house sushi is better than their to-go sushi. So
yeah, I do wish that more restaurants would focus on, instead of just, and I understand it, but I wish that more restaurants would focus on, instead of just like, all right, we have to get a sale, let's package it and get it out the door. I wish that they would focus more on user experience during all of this, you know. And I think of like Dan Seeley. I mean, listen, at the cider mill, you know, he's told, you know, his
probably the best meal I've had during COVID.
Really?
Cider Mill. I love that restaurant. It's an awesome restaurant.
I don't go enough, but they do a great job. Yeah. The hospitality at the cider mill is probably what I think. I mean, the food is great, but the hospitality there is real. I mean, when like maybe 2 years ago, I forget how long, over a year ago, when the article had just broke, and I had asked them to join the Eat Local card, and they had said no, and I think they're just like not a discount place. And you know, Dinosaur said that to me. They're like, we'd join in a heartbeat. We just don't offer discounts. And but they had said no to the Eat Local card, but a month or so later, the article came out that they had that staff, that like general manager that stole $80,000 from them.
I mean, talk about Dan Seeley too, being a guy that has had some rough luck.
Yeah.
At that location. I mean, Diamond Catering's also really good catering company. I mean, I can't comment on if they're the best in the area or not because I haven't personally used them, but from what I hear, they're top notch. Yeah. But man, between like the ice damage and the, you know, all that stuff, and then the guys, you know, stealing money from them and all that. But anyways, you were saying.
So we had this like meetup group, like monthly dinner group. It was like me and 12 married or widowed women over 60 that would go to dinner every month at a different restaurant. And it was cool because I could go out, I could say to a local restaurant, I'm going to show up with like, sometimes we'd have 30. And I'd be like, listen, we're going to show up for 30 people on an off night. They're all going to order, like each going to spend at least $30. And I really enjoyed doing that. And so one of our first dinners was at Cider Mill. And I'd done like a public, we had the private meetup group, but then we would post them on like a Facebook event. And we did that on the Facebook event. We said, support the Cider Mill dinner. And I put like the article and shit. And we packed the restaurant out for them. I mean, they had like every table was reserved twice that night. And they put us in like their back, like little 20-person room. And Dan and Teresa were there, came in and, you know, said hi and thank you and yada, yada, yada. And so, you know, I have really great respect for them. But I forget the point of talking about. So during COVID, like I think within the past couple months, Dan said to his staff, and this is a story I got secondhand, but Dan said to his staff, we're not as busy for dine-in. We can, you know, you can be furloughed, or if you want, we'll open up delivery and you'll become the delivery drivers. And, you know, the waitress started doing it and started making more money than they were in normal times because, you know, they were out there hustling. I mean, there was...
Right. Now you're answering the phone, you're selling to people, you're getting them, you know, wine.
Yeah.
Good food, packaged well.
Right.
And that's, you know, the sad part about this is the you know, the restaurants that are going to fold because of this, and the, you know, people that are going to lose their jobs and all that. But the one of the good things about it is the innovation that's going to come from it, from places like that go, okay, we're going to use our staff in a secondary way. We're going to keep them on staff, and let's figure out how to make this really good for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dan Hudson, you've said it all.
I guess.
This is the longest podcast in Eat Local New York history.
Really, I can talk
at 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Cool,
and I'm thrilled with that. The camera shut off about 45 minutes ago.
No worries. Well, have me back sometime, and I'll let you know where I end up, and maybe we can do something then.
Where Kyle wants to do a setting where it's a podcast with 4 chefs.
Okay.
And like their back room one night. So I think we're going to try and set that up pretty soon.
Yeah, let me know. I'm open to it, and I think, you know, no matter where I land, I'm going to invest more time in myself and less time, but higher quality time in whatever restaurant I'm in. So this is the kind of stuff I want to do for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome, man.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.